pantalla que dice interpretation. Gracias. And with that, I will call this meeting to order, and Dr. Yarborough has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll start with public participation. Dr. White and Dr. Joyner.
Let me get my timekeeper ready. Okay, you will have 3 minutes to speak. When your 3 minutes is up, I will say time, and you can complete the sentence that you're making at that time.
Our first is, I'm sorry, Dr. Joyner, are you ready?
Yeah, we're ready. I have the timekeeper set up.
Okay. Our first speaker is Melody Gallagher.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm calling in from my phone for the first time. Good evening. My name is Melody Gallagher. I'm an art teacher in NHPS and a Ward 25 resident of New Haven. I've taught in NHPS for 16 years and during that time under 8 principals. This year I transferred to Wilbur Cross under Principal Edith Johnson. Over the past 9 months, I've watched as she has led by example. I've seen her in the CAF every morning with students, literally breaking bread with them. I've overheard students ask their friends who they can go to for help, and the answer is almost always Mrs. Johnson. She holds both students and staff accountable while remaining relatable and real, a delicate balance not many can master. She's a true definition of a leader. When I heard that she was going to be on the blue sheet tonight, my heart sank at the thought of her leaving Cross. But I can also say that it's good to see NHPS holding on to those who are dedicated and who can serve as such strong examples to others. I cannot think of a better candidate for the Director of Leadership Development and wanted to take this moment to share with the board my brief but impacted experience while working under Principal Johnson. So thank you.
Madam President, that is the only hand raised. Up. The hand just went up. Is that hand staying up? Oh.
No.
Kirsten Hopes McFadden, you may begin.
I apologize. Good evening. It is with heavy heart and much prayer that I speak to you this evening. I have debated with myself about whether this is the proper forum for this. The issue that I would like to discuss is often spoken about behind closed doors and with hushed voices. I'm often asked, and I even ask myself, why this particular issue is allowed to fester. I realize my approach may be unorthodox. However, it is my human duty to speak truth to power. I have been in this district too long to have things continue to go on the way they have always gone. It just isn't working anymore. I am concerned that the national teacher shortage, which has not left our district untouched, will only be exacerbated by the hostile work environment caused by certain administrators. Of course, I can't give any details as my knowledge is based on confidential information, but I can give information about tone and the attempted denial of union rights. If this union busting continues, I will be forced to contact the labor board. I would prefer not to do that. I would prefer a mechanism to rein in administrators who abuse their power and seek to make their employees downright miserable. We need a whistleblower clause where teachers and other staff members can speak up without fear of retaliation. The vast majority of administrators are valuable professionals for the district, supportive of their teachers, paraprofessionals, students, and families. However, we have had a few bad apples who are allowed to harass with impunity. Nothing ever happens to them. Instead, some of these very administrators receive praises from certain board members while staff is left wondering when will the misery end. And ultimately, some of the staff leave the district in despair and the students leave the school. We have to do better. Staff is often told to speak up. However, most people are not foolish enough to believe that this will not lead to retaliation. All of a sudden, there are more observations and scrutiny about every little thing, as if it is expected that everyone's job is done perfectly every day. Also, I have searched both the BOE's website and the City of New Haven's website, and I have failed to find a mechanism to complain anonymously or not. I have heard time and time again that we don't want to blow things up with the preface that things be handled behind the scenes. That is a good strategy if things will change for the better. However, oftentimes things remain the same or just get worse. But as I was reminded by my pastor, it is my job to engage in the impossible. My background as a lawyer and an advocate has placed me in a position where I must speak truth to power. I know not everyone has the faith that everything will be okay if you just do the right thing. That is why I do my best to do it and help empower others to do it as well. I implore you to take this seriously and help stop the exodus of teachers. Thank you.
Madam President, that concludes the raised hands.
Thank you, Dr. White and Dr. Joyner. And
Madam President,
so-
just a quick point of order. We had discussed in the, if I may,
Go ahead, you just scared me. Go ahead.
sorry. We discussed in the past, just reminding at every public input session, before every public input session, that since oftentimes the items that people raise are not on the agenda, we're not allowed to respond to them, and just to regularly remind the public that we appreciate their input, but we can't respond to specific issues unless they're on the agenda. It would be great if we could normally do that reminder in the future.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mayor Elicker. Thank you. Okay, and so we'll move on to the action items. The first one being the approval of the board meeting minutes for April 25th. So motion to accept. A motion to approve. Mr. Wilcox,
I move we approve the board meeting minutes of April 25th, 2022.
for a second.
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote to approve the April 25th minute meetings. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez.
Yes,
Mr. Fiore is not on. Ms. Roman,
Yes.
Colton is also still not on. Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. And so the minutes pass. Next is the personnel report. Dr. Tracy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Good evening, board and members of the community who may be watching.
Speak up a little bit.
Oh, where's my? About that. Good evening, board, members of the community who may be watching and listening. I'm Eileen Tracy, Superintendent. I am presenting my personal report for approval. On this personal report, we have 3 promotions that are administrative, 2 administrative promotion, and 1 that is a lateral move, all central office promotions and moves. You have received ahead of time the resumes of these individuals. And then we have some folks who are also retiring from the district. So we ask that you please approve my personal report. Thank you.
A motion to approve personnel report. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes, I'd like to make a motion, and that is I move that we approve the action items of the superintendent's personnel report.
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion?
Madam Chair.
Dr. Benitez, hold on, Dr. Joyner.
yes, just a bit of a concern. I'm sure that the team at central office did their due diligence in providing us with the names of the candidates and selecting the right candidates for these positions. I just want to make sure that I raise a concern. I'm sure that the team will work with this candidate. Mr. McCain seems to have an experience with STEM more from the focus of math. I understand that most people believe that math and science are pretty much on the same page. However, those of us who have worked with the science during the last 20 years know that we need to have a strong science background for the position of supervisor of science. I am sure that the team is convinced that this person does have that background, but I just want to make sure that I raise the concern and that we provide the support for Mr. McCain to be successful as a science supervisor, not as a STEM supervisor. If we can do that, I am all for this.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Dr. Joyner?
Madam Chair, I'd like to say something about all three candidates. And since the conversation started with Mr. McCain, I'd like to start with that. Mr. McCain is a mathematician, and mathematics is the language of science. It is the fundamental basis for science. In fact, scientists use mathematics to explain the universe. There's a reason why the formula is E = mc squared. And if you look at his clinical experiences, if you look at what he's actually created, we're lucky that we got him here as a principal, and we're lucky still that we're able to keep him here as a person that will lead the department, who has actually demonstrated the clinical capacity to build institutions that promote the teaching and application of science. I mean, just look through his resume. He created a science school in a high school. And any person I've been a college professor, and college professors know that clinicians offer far more to a field than theoreticians. In fact, clinicians are the ones that show the theoreticians how to get it done. Oftentimes academics have an idea, but they haven't had the experience in the real world of application. And it takes a clinician to come along and say, here's how we translate this idea into reality. And this man has done this better than anybody in my lifetime in this school district in terms of what he's actually created. It's like that debate between Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois. Du Bois had a lot of great ideas, but Booker T. Washington created an institution that produced the Tuskegee Airmen and 75% of the veterinarians in this country of color. So what Mr. McCain has done is he's created institutions, and the work that he's done at Barnard School, if you were able to take a time lapse photography and look at what the school was like before he got there, and look at what it's like now, you will see evidence of his ability to not only know science, but to apply it. And in this case, it's not mathematics directly, it's really botany and zoology and physics and all of the science. So he has shown the capacity to converge all of this knowledge into one effort to create a whole system that educates kids. So I'll leave him and I'll go to, and by the way, if it took knowledge of a subject matter to run a particular department, then what would we do in departments where people supervise a lot of subjects? Or what would we do in schools where people supervise a lot of subjects? So it is one's ability to lead and to solve problems and to work with people that is critically important for leadership in that position. And let me move on to Mark Sweeting, who actually has so many skills and so much dedication and so much knowledge that we're lucky that some other district hasn't stolen him away. He really cares about kids, and I think that Hillhouse is in for a great leader once he assumes that responsibility. He protects kids, he protects staff, he's easy to work with, and I also predict that the climate at that school will go up phenomenally because he listens to people, and he's certainly a gifted young man. Edith Johnson is one of the best leaders that I've ever known. She grew up in the Boogie Down Bronx, I believe, and she had experience in one of the finest school districts in the country in Montgomery County. And she's multilingual. She's a living example of diversity, and a person who recognizes all of her human attributes. And she's fearless. She is fearless. For her to run the school as well as she's done over the time she's been there is just a testament to the power of women in general, and this particular young woman in particular. And she does all of that while also being a great mother and wife and daughter. And we're always talking about people leaving our district. And we have a chance right now to hire 3 of the most talented educators in this state. And we also need to think in terms of creating the best learning environment for our teachers too. But I'll talk about that when I do my TL report. But these are outstanding appointments. I've been here for 50 some years. And the talent in this particular group, it would be almost like drafting LeBron James, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and having Whitney Houston sing the national anthem. And so I am wholeheartedly in favor of these candidates, and I'm glad we're able to keep them. And I hope that we can keep many more talented people like Viviana and Keisha and others, Dr. White and Evie, that we have here. We have a good team of great young people in our district, and I'll be glad to vote for this roster tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a quick question. I see that there's no salary listed for Robert McCain. Could someone explain to us why that's the case?
Because it's a lateral move, Mr. Goldson, so it's the same as the salary he currently has.
Which is what? Do we know what that is?
I don't have it offhand. We could get it to you, Mr. Goldson.
Okay, I would appreciate, I mean, even with these lateral moves, it'd be good to know how much, how much this position is costing us, because it's always a concern of our constituents, and it certainly should be a concern of us on the board, because, I mean, these salaries are humongous. They're huge, and with the looming deficit coming up, we should at least be able to say that we know what it's costing us, even if we're willing to vote in support of it. So I would request, hopefully in the future, when we are doing these transfers, even though they're lateral moves with the same salaries, if we can get an ideal what they are. How long has this supervisor of science position been vacant?
Since
It's not vacant.
This is for next year.
We're talking.
it was a position held by Mr. Richard Therium, who retired.
Right. Okay. Got it. Understood. In the position of okay, I understand.
Thank you.
I thought Therium wasn't math; he was science.
Yes.
I just heard someone mention. How long was this position of professional learning leadership development vacant?
Since we made Ms. Tessa Gomes Johnson principal of King Robinson, vacated by Dr. Johnson.
So that was a couple of months, for a month or two.
About a month ago or so.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on the action items of the personnel report. Dr. Gordon,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Ms. Roman. Is she still here?
Is she on?
No.
No.
No, she hopped off.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so that item passes.
Thank you.
Let's start funding up with, oh, go ahead, Dr. Tracy.
Thank you. Thank you very much, board members. As you can see in the resumes, these people have a wealth of experience and have been great leaders to lead our district and move forward. I'm going to now get them in each individually to just say thank you to the board. I start with Miss Edith Johnson. And Edith, you only have a few minutes to tell Edith. Edith, she knows my joke. Miss Johnson. Is she here?
Waiting for it to click in.
Okay, okay, Miss Johnson.
McCain's already
there. Okay, let me take Mr. McCain, who is already here. Mr. McCain. Mr. McCain, okay,
Yep,
go ahead,
yep.
Mr. McCain.
So I want to thank the Board of Ed for trusting me and for this science position I'm really excited to be at. Dr. Tracy for believing in me and giving me this incredible opportunity. I'm very excited to get started working collaboratively with the academic team, building principals, teachers, and students to make New Haven a premier science district. I'm very excited for this job and this opportunity for this new challenge. And again, I want to thank you so much for it.
Miss Johnson. I just saw her. Go ahead, Miss Johnson.
Hi, and as you know, we do things big. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Tracy.
Oh, she's frozen.
Oh, no, she froze.
No.
Okay, you're frozen.
How about
Oh,
now?
there
Can
she
you hear
is.
me now?
Okay, now.
Jacob, say hi. Okay. Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you so much, Dr. Tracy, the board, for this opportunity. I am so beyond excited to be the new director of professional learning and leadership development. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to working with current leaders, sitting leaders, future leaders, teachers, to really develop a professional development and a leadership, continue with our leadership program. As you know, I just want to thank my village. Half of them are here because everyone who knows I hang with these guys all the time. Thank you. I think that it's important to recognize not only my personal village, my family, my husband, my children who constantly support me and push me to do better and always do great. My parents, I think it's important when we talk about leadership. My parents came from Puerto Rico, didn't speak the language. My father always instilled in us the importance of education and doing better than the next generation. So I'm very excited to continue making my family proud. And the last thing I just want to say to my cross community, this is very bittersweet. Those of you who know me, I can't believe I have a blue on right now. I am very, no. Keep him on mute. I just want to thank my cross community. It is very bittersweet. I love you guys. I'm a better administrator, a better person, a better mom because of my time at Wilbur Cross. And I love you guys. Next year will be great for everyone. And thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Johnson, Johnson, and Johnson and Johnson.
Johnson and Johnson.
It's nice to see you wear the Hill House blue.
This is not really the right blue. This is not really the right blue. I'm
Good observation.
And Donnell, she married a Hill House man.
I can't help it. You know, and I have red lipstick on. It's always I always listen. I will talk trash at the next game.
Okay,
I'm always
right.
rooting for Cross. Thank you.
Now, Mr. Mark Sweeting.
I'm extremely thankful. And that's what needs to be the first thing that you hear from me. I am extremely grateful and extremely thankful. I'd like to thank Mrs. Connor, first and foremost, for her inspiration and constant encouraging. I'd like to also thank Dr. White for consistently giving me wisdom and insight. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Mrs. Hannons for her recognition, her direction, and for her kicks, for continuing to push me. And never last and never least, I'd like to thank Dr. Tracy for her direction and, of course, her vision and her belief. It's an incredible day that I've become a part of an institution. That's right. I just wanted that to sink in. This institution, this great institution that I had the opportunity to talk to my mother about, the famous graduates who walk the halls, from judges to esteemed board members. Yes, Mr. Golson, thank you. Yes, Dr. Joyner, thank you. But I do want to take this time to thank Mr. Eric from Wilbercross, Miss Betty from Truman, Miss Regina from Co-op, Miss Barry from Esoms, and Miss Dawn from Beecher. And I'm pre-thanking Mrs. Desiree and Miss Sandra from the house. These are the head cooks from the school that I've mentioned that feed thousands daily. And I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to them. Every school that I've been in, I walk into the cafeteria, I greet them. Of course, I'm walking into CAF, talking to the children, but I needed to say hello and thank you to every head cook, every cafeteria worker in every school that I've been in the city of New Haven. And I just wanted to say thank you. I'm here to fight for my children. And the last thing I want you to know is when you do approach me, please approach me by asking or by telling me what you're able to do for Hale House, not asking me what Hale House is able to do for you. I thank you so much. I am grateful and I look forward to the challenge of leading this great institution. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks to all three of you who have presented. I am extremely proud of you and I know you will do well. We are going to be supportive of the work that you do. We are a team. This is New Haven strong. Our board members, our staff at central office, our school staff, we're all going to work together for one reason, and that's the upliftment of all our students and staff. So thank you so much. That ends my piece, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Tracy. Mr. Goldson, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to confirm an assumption that I'm making. The superintendent has been very effective in making sure that these administrative positions, particularly the principals, assistant principals, don't stay open very long.
Yes.
So I'm making the assumption that there is a plan in place for filling Ms. Johnson's very capable shoes sooner rather than later. And
Yes.
Confirmation that is the case.
Yeah, we have that in the works. And Mr. Golson, let me just give you the salary you had asked about
Yes.
publicly.
Yes, ma'am.
It's current principal salary of $159,880. So that has not changed.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And should I also make the assumption that there should be one or two Hill House graduates in the running for the principalship of Wilbercross High School?
Hey, we'll see,
You
we'll
don't have to
see.
confirm, you don't have to confirm that, but thank you, Madam.
Okay, thank you. All righty.
Thank you. Okay, Miss Mary Derwin, the Head Start funding applications. And just before, I guess, before we continue with that, really quickly, item number 4 is actually going to happen after the executive session. That was meant to be under the executive session items. So we'll do that after we come out of executive session.
Is Miss Derwin
Dr.
on?
Tracy, yeah.
Is Ms. Duran here?
No.
Somebody else speak on it?
Oh, boy. Can you
Mr.
speak about
Wilcox?
that?
Oh, Mr. Walker.
Mr. Wilcox?
I can certainly speak on this. This is something that the Head Start Committee did take a look at. Ms. Derwin also provided a documentation and a memo. These are 3 submissions that the Head Start office and the district want to make. One is regarding carryover of basic funds. The other is requesting permission to carry over CARES Act funds. And the other is an application for cost of living increases in quality improvement funds. So it's 3 submissions that they want to make that would allow us to carry over funds and apply for some more.
Any questions, Mr. Bolton? Mr. Bolton, go ahead. You're muted.
You're on mute.
I guess I'll wait for this to be moved. It hasn't been moved yet, has it?
No.
No.
So
Okay.
I guess I'll wait for it to be moved before I have questions.
Mr. Wilcox?
I'm making a motion. I move that we approve the submission of the application for the carryover Head Start basic funds, the CARES Act funds, and the submission of the application for the COLA and quality improvement funds as outlined in the memorandum from Ms. Derwin.
Point of
I
order.
second it.
Point of order.
Mr.
Just, Ms. Wilcox, can these be moved as one item, or do they have to be done separately for the feds?
I don't know that it would matter one way or the other, just the fact that the record would show that we are approving both, all 3 of these items.
Thank you.
I second.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Any further discussion, Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. To the chair of the committee, could you give us a brief overview of why there's money left to carry over? Are we under enrolled? Is it a result of kids staying home because of COVID? What is the reason for the carryover funds? And are they from one previous year or several previous years?
So we're getting into some of the answers that I don't have ready, so I'd have to defer to the administration on that. My understanding, and from what was discussed in the Head Start subcommittee meeting, is that there were some aspects of those. So under enrollment, in part due to COVID and not using all of those funds. They did attach in the memo full listing of how the funds are going to be used, and for our benefit to take a look at that. These funds also include, some of their plans for this include some enhancements of outdoor classroom and playground spaces, which will be a benefit to the schools where some of our satellite locations of Head Start are. So, but I see Ms. Velasquez.
Ms. Velasquez?
Good evening. I checked with Mary Derwin, and those funds were not used during the year that we were remote, they had a surplus, and so that was carried over into this year.
That includes parent development funding also. I think the parent group gets a certain amount of funding each year.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the parent, if I may,
Go ahead.
the Parent Policy Council also saw this and approved it as well, as required by Head Start.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox, Mr. Vasquez. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the Head Start funding applications. Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
students are still not here. Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, and so that item passes. Item 4, we're skipping over. We'll do that after executive session. And so that takes us to finance and operations. Mr. Wilcox.
All right, thank you very much. As is typical, if anybody would like anything moved separate, please let me know. One thing I wanted to direct your attention to was just informational. You did have a Windstream Enterprise item in your packet, and that's because it was a correction of the amount. This was noted in the Head Start meeting. It's on, in the Finance and Operations Committee meeting, it was listed on the minutes, but because it was moving the amount, correcting the amount from $64,180 to the current $77,643.72, that we wanted you all to have the full information. So that's the explanation as to why that was in there. So making a motion, I move that we, I see Mr. Goldson has his hand up. Did you want something moved separately, sir?
Mr. Goldson?
No, I'm sorry. I raised that for discussion purposes after it's moved.
Okay,
Making
thanks.
sure he gets ahead of everyone else.
No, that's not true.
He's holding his spot.
All right. I move that we approve the 1 abstract, the 10 agreements, and the 9 contracts as listed on the action items for finance and operations.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Any discussion? Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. I noticed items 4 and 5 are 2 items that are less than $20,000, which is the threshold that the superintendent could put on for informational purposes only, but doesn't require a board vote. I'm wondering why, and I'm not complaining, but I'm just wondering why these 2 items are up for a vote when they're less than the $20,000 threshold that the superintendent has. Thank you.
Dr. Tracy or Mr. Wilcox?
I'll just say it was listed on our agenda, and so we went through the process of listening to the testimony and voting to approve them.
No particular reason, Mr. Goldson, I don't think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, we'll go on the no items. Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, so F&O items pass. I don't see the students, but did they read the students' report with anyone to read, or no students' report? Okay. Teaching and learning, Dr. Joyner?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Board members will remember that in January and February, I submitted to you a draft of the philosophy statement that would precede the policy on teaching and learning. So I would like to, it's been given to governance, and thank you, Dr. Benitez, for your input, because you're the inspiration for adding the pathways, and I should be the last person to leave the pathways out in it. And it gives us a great way to look at the ways in which we're trying to develop students. So what I like for board members to do is to read it and express any concerns you might have, so that we can bring it back to you for a, I think it's been around long enough that I'd like to have it voted on at the next convenient time, at next board meeting, because we've been doing it for almost a year, and I've been submitting stuff to the board all along. However, if that's not the case, we'll do it at a time that the board as an organization feels that is appropriate. But I think it captures the kind of district that we have. We are a district of children that come from colonized people. We're also a district of immigrants, in some cases, refugees from oppression in their previous countries. And based on what's going on in the world today, we're going to probably have more refugees from countries. And so being a district that serves the needs of colonized and enslaved descendants, refugees, and immigrants fleeing their country in search of greater opportunity, I think that we have to look at how we educate those kids in a way that empowers them and helps them overcome their historical disadvantages. And I don't know of any district in the country that has ever looked at who they're educating and why they're educating them. In fact, Benjamin Bloom, who was a hero of mine, said that one of the most important factors in the education of students is the characteristics of the learner. And I think that's something that all good teachers recognize, that the background and experience of the kids that they teach is very important in how we construct instruction for them. And I think for an entire district to say that is really important, particularly in a country now where people are banning books. They're trying to rewrite the past. There are people who don't want to accept the fact that America is a country that was created on the backs of slaves, women, and other underserved populations. And that we have to, if we're going to really be the land of the free and the home of the brave, we have to be brave enough to admit that first. And then we have to exercise our freedom by engaging in activities that really make what we say in our national documents true. E pluribus unum, out of many, one. And that everybody in this country has a right to control their own bodies, hint, hint. And that that regardless to skin color, sexual orientation, weight, height, any other factor, that everybody has the right to be treated with dignity as a human being. And I'm really proud of this board for standing up for that. I'm proud of the superintendent for leading, and I'm proud of a mayor who does that as well. And so I would hope that you would endorse the text in this preamble or philosophy statement. And so that's the first thing. The next thing is that I want to initiate a task force on the teaching and learning climate in New Haven Public Schools, so that we can gather enough information and come up with enough recommendations, enough alterations, so that when we start the school year in September, that we will have a handle on dealing with some of the issues that have caused us so much pain as a result of the pandemic and other factors. We were an underfunded school district in a large urban district to begin with, and all the problems that go with that. And those problems were exacerbated by a pandemic that half of the country doesn't seem to be willing to understand and accept that immunization is probably the best way to begin to stem the tide of that, and certain other practices that are scientifically based. And we've also had chaos across the world, really, that affects us. Everything that happens everywhere affects everybody everywhere. And so what I would like to do is, under the aegis of the Teaching and Learning Committee, which is a committee of the whole, create a task force on the teaching and learning climate in New Haven Public Schools, so that we can begin to identify the things that we do well, that create a stable and orderly teaching and learning climate, the things that we need to do better, and how we can come to grips with the kinds of outlier behavior in our schools that has caused injury, emotional and physical injury to children, as well as staff members. And what I'd like to do is divide that group up into a pre-K through 4 group, a 5 through 8 group, and a 9 through 12 group. And what I'm going to do is put it to paper, submit it to the board as a whole and to the superintendent. And hopefully we can get off to a start where we can have the task force begin to investigate the challenges that we're facing as a district and make recommendations for changes that will be effective in the next school year. And that means looking at our current policy and also looking at whether or not our current policy is being enforced. And I have to say that a great deal of this will be on the backs of principals, because a school is a shadow of the principal that leads that building. And a lot of problems that come up to us at the board level, first of all, we're not administrators. Dr. Tracy is chief administrative officer for the district. But a lot of those problems are problems that should be dealt with at the building level. And if you have the structures in place, if you have a school planning management team, a student staff support team, and a parent program, you have a structure in place to make that happen if you're doing it faithfully. And so what I'd like to do is do that. I will be getting, within 5 days, I'll be getting a position paper out to the board and to the superintendent outlining this whole task force initiative. And I'd also like to say that I have a great deal of faith in the union leadership in this district. I believe we have a really good leader for the School Administrators Association, for the National Federation of Teachers, New Haven Federation of Teachers, and for our paraprofessionals and our clerical staff. And we can't do anything effectively without involving union leadership and various other leaderships, and as well parents. So I really want a representative group of us that will come together and try to wrestle with the problems that we have so that we can do a better job next year. I'm really concerned about really outlier aberrant behavior where teachers are being physically hurt, students are being physically hurt, misuse of social media. In fact, social media has become anti-social media in the hands of certain people. And so we have to do something about this, and we have to do something to make sure that we make sure that we can create a safe and orderly environment, learning environment for the people who work in the school district. And so again, I'll be going forward. I've been working behind the scenes a little bit with Jim and Joseph Lumping and a few others to talk about that, because we see it as a rising problem that if we don't get a handle on it, we're going to look back on this year as the good old days. And we don't want to do that. We want to, and we can improve it. And I think we have the leadership in every single case with support from the mayor's office, from the superintendent, and from people in the community who are really concerned about the schools rather than self-aggrandizement and what have you. We can make a difference. So I'll be getting that to you ASAP. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jordan. Questions or comments for Dr. Jordan? Okay, we'll move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Tracy.
Thank you again, Madam President. Just a quick report before my principals come on to share what's going on in their schools. I have sent to the board the graduation dates and time. Please be reminded to send in to Ray Johnson the schools you want, the high schools that you want to be participating in. Some of you have already done that. Please make sure she gets all of them so she can set up for the schools. I also want to say that there's an uptick in the virus in our schools. Last week alone, we had 78 that impacted 21 schools. Just today alone, we had about 10 cases already reported just for today. So, and I got Mayor Eliker's message on Saturday evening or sometime about New Haven County being one of those high-risk areas based on CDC guidelines. So we know that, and also from the Biden administration, they're predicting about 100 million possible infections from now until a certain time of the year. So we have to be very vigilant. I'm reminding staff and students to be vigilant, to continue wearing their mask, because that seemed to help in a lot of situations, and also to encourage them to get vaccinated or boosted if they have not yet done so. So we're doing our part here through Dr. White and Director of Public Health. We have, I just want to share with you recently that came in, the graduation rate for New Haven Public Schools, a 4-year cohort rate. That means those students who receive their high school diplomas within 4 years, including early and summer graduation for that particular cohort. We're standing at 78.6% in terms of the graduation rate. Now, some schools' graduation rate may be higher, but overall district graduation rate is 78.6%, about 0.8 increase from last year. Last year was 77.8. So we're seeing where the pandemic has also impacted, because in 2018-19, we were at 80% in terms of graduation rate. So we're going to continue to work hard with our students, providing summer school for those who need summer school support, et cetera, and hopefully we will see a better increase. We have not yet looked into what the 6-year cohort graduation rate is like. This is just for the 4-year cohort graduation rate. So that's my little bit of report to you. Now I want to turn over to the schools that will be making presentations for this evening. We have New Haven Academy, Principal Gregory Baldwin, L.W. Beecher, Museum Magnet School of Arts and Science, Principal Kathy Beck, Barack Obama Magnet, University Magnet School, Principal Jamie Baker, Vilsaint. She doesn't go by that name, what we called her that time. That's her married name, Vilsaint. Vilsaint, did I say that right, Jamie? Oh, I got that right. Okay, so these are the people who will be making their presentation. I think I'm going to turn it over to Viviana Connor or Keisha Red Hannons, one of them.
Keisha.
Yes.
Good evening, board. Always thankful for the opportunity to come before you. And it's always exciting when we have our principals speak about great things that are happening in their schools. I will share my screen at this time. We are going to continue following the theme that was set forth during our last meeting, and that's on strategies for improvement. How are we working and leveraging our funds and resources to improve student outcomes and teacher outcomes as well as looking at teacher effectiveness. As always, all of our presentations are rooted in our strategic plan, which you'll hear tonight throughout the presentations are our core values at play. How we engage all students to ensure equitable opportunities for all, how we build a culture of continuous improvement, how we hold high expectations for every staff member, student, parent, the entire community of learners, and how we collaborate with partners to make New Haven Public Schools better. With that said, I'll turn it over to our first presenter, Ms. Kathy Beck, Principal of L.W. Beecher Museum Magnet School of Arts and Sciences.
Thank you, Mrs. Hannons. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to congratulate my colleagues on their appointments And I'll start. Keisha, will you do the slide or do I have access?
I'll do it for you.
Okay, thank you. So if you could just go to the first slide, thank you. So I wanted to present on student portfolio review, but I'm going to tell you a little story. Many years ago when I was the AP at King Robinson, it was called STAR Review, and it was facilitated by Gemma Joseph Lumpkin, and I thought it was a fascinating process. And when I was transferred to Beecher as principal, I brought it along with me. And Miss Baker, who was the first grade teacher at the time, can attest to that. And over time, it's evolved, and now we call it portfolio review, but I wanted to give credit where credit is due. It is not my brainchild, but I've always been fascinated by this process, and it's always been very helpful to me. So the pandemic was an opportunity for us to really take inventory of what processes and accountability processes that we wanted to keep or we wanted to shape, and this one was sacred. And we did not want to give this one up. And although it is a very time-consuming process, we decided we would keep it because it holds all the adults accountable to the children and to the outcomes. So what is portfolio review? It is one of our accountability processes that holds administrators, teachers, and the support staff accountable for student outcomes. And the pictures to the right are simply the folders that all the teachers must bring to the process. And that is really tells the story of the student and their student work. Every teacher participates in student portfolio review at least 3 times a school year. And we group the teachers in various ways. It might be grade level teams, it might be vertical, it might be by content area. It depends on what's happening and what we need to know. And in the folders are just student work. It could be classwork, unit assessments, small group focus sheets. And we just see this as a sacred process that yields results and guides our focus school-wide and helps us to support the teachers. Okay, I'm ready. So phase 1 is the planning, and the planning takes some time because we have to fit everyone in and we have to get coverage. So we need almost like the perfect day, and we get it. So the teachers come in for about 30 minutes, and prior to their arrival, they will fill out a rubric where they assess themselves on 4 areas that we find to be very important, and that's feedback, differentiation, student learning, and social emotional learning. And the teachers will bring and organize all of the student portfolios, and they will also bring data to support the folders. Now, phase 2 is the meeting itself. And this is the meeting that we discuss what we're seeing in the folders. They pass the folders around, the leadership team is present, and we talk about what we're seeing and what we're not seeing. And this process is not meant at all to be evaluated. It is meant to be supportive. It is meant to drive our discussions. It's meant to drive our PD. And it's an opportunity for the teachers to tell us what they need, what's holding them back from giving the students the best outcomes. So they will come, they will share their folders, we will look at work, we will ask questions, we'll give them feedback verbally. Oftentimes, they will share, they will look at the data, and sometimes the data matches the folder, sometimes the data doesn't, but the folder can tell the story so much better than the actual numeric data because this tells us the why. Oftentimes, we will invite people from the district to join us. In years past, we've had Diane Spence join us, we've had Dr. Rao, we've had Cheryl Brown, principals across the district to join us to give us an extra lens because we sometimes need someone else to hear. Dr. Benitez, I believe she joined us when she was our director at the time to give us some feedback, to give the leadership team feedback as we give them feedback. Medication. So after the teachers meet, after we've cycled through all of the teachers, and sometimes it's a day, most times it takes us 2 days, the leadership team will meet to discuss all that we have seen, all that we have heard. And these are just a snapshot of the chart paper, our grows and our glows. And we write it out. What have we seen? What have we heard? And we record it. And we give the feedback verbally as we're talking to them in the meeting, but afterwards we put it in writing to them what we heard, what we saw, and what they said they needed. Again, it's not evaluative, it's not punitive, it's meant to be supportive and to feel supportive. And what we get out of it are trends that inform the future coaching cycles and the focus areas for the leadership team. So prior to COVID, we were celebrating moving from bucket 5 to bucket 3 on Smarter Balance, and we were en route to bucket 2. And our 6th graders were the 3rd highest performing cohort in ELA in the district. So when we returned from COVID, we celebrate now iReady and being a leader in the district with our moving students out of tier 3 and grades 4 and tripling the students out of in proficiency in grade 4 from 4% to 15%. Growth is really what we are focusing on now. We always focused on growth, but particularly now post-COVID or in COVID, we really have to really hone in on how the students are moving. And in English language arts, kindergartners letter ID went from 57% in the fall to 83% in the winter. And our 4th graders have an average Lexile of a 95 from fall to winter on the reading inventory assessment. 52% of our 6th graders and 57% of our 7th graders have already met their end of year goal for the winter administration of the reading inventory. So those are just some data celebrations that we believe are a result of really looking in at every student at the portfolio review process. I'm ready. So they asked us to kind of talk about what makes us special. And there's a lot of things that makes Beecher special. And Beecher is a big school with a small staff that's committed to doing what's right for children. And again, the pandemic really had us reflect on what traditions could we hold on to, what needed to be reshaped, and what new traditions should we start. And we wanted to keep a student portfolio review, but we also wanted to continue to be an award-winning magnet, and we're the recipient of Magnet School of Distinction for 2021, which is our 8th award from the Magnet Schools of America. We wanted to continue with celebrating our students in quarterly awards, and they do look different now, they're virtual, but we will go back to in-person quarterly awards. Mr. Sweeting brought with him Each One Teach One, which is a peer-to-peer tutoring program, which is done virtually, which is phenomenal. The older kids tutoring the younger kids after school virtually, and the parents love it. We also have a very supportive PTO that hasn't changed. The pandemic did not change that. They continue to support the teachers and be a wonderful support for the school as a whole. We have a student council that is run by our magnet coach that continues to have initiatives and are active in the community. So there are a lot of things here. I won't go over each one, but they're still in play, and they may look a little different because the pandemic has forced us to do things virtually, but we continue to hold dear our traditions. We support our families at Christmas with the angel tree and holiday baskets, Winter Wonderland, and we're starting Friday a mini music concert. Every Friday we will serenade, our band will serenade the parents at dismissal, and we're starting our little mini concert series. So we're excited about that. And Drama Club will be starting up soon. I'm on the top right. Drama Club will be starting up soon. We hope to get that established for the upcoming school year. And we did do a TED Talk with our students a couple of years ago, right before COVID, and we hope to resurrect that as well. Here are some pictures of what I just discussed: pumpkin decorating, our SEL window for the SEL day with hope, peace, and love, our graduation, our field day, our literacy parade, and we will have our final, we will have our final exhibition. That was a video link. We will have
in PDF.
So we have our final exhibition that we were inviting you to, which is in person for the first time since the pandemic on June 9th.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Beck, and thank you for highlighting all the great things that are happening at Beecher School. Principal Beck, you and your team are doing a phenomenal job. And
Thank
so
you.
we turn from one of our most seasoned principals to the rookie, Miss Baker, who we know is doing great things over at Barack Obama. So we turn it over to you right now, Ms. Baker.
All right, thanks for the great introduction, Mrs. Hannons. Shout out to Mrs. Connor and Dr. Tracy for choosing me on this evening. I am honored. Hello to all our board members. As Kathy began to go through what happens at Beecher, that was my very first school that I taught at. And yes, I was a first grade teacher and I love Star Review. And I used to come prepared each time. Mrs. Beck can confirm that. I am the principal of Barack H. Obama, and there's a few things I think are worthy of highlighting here on this evening. At our school, what we try to do is we strive to create critical thinkers, problem solvers that can succeed in this ever-changing world. If you take a look at the pictures, you can see how we create a place where scholars are thriving and learning in this great elementary experience through our play-based learning approach, which is a learning approach that we use in our kindergarten and pre-K classrooms, as well as our magnet theme that we have here in the building, which highlights some of the great things that STEM brings to a building, brings to a curriculum. So if you look here, you'll see our scholars doing some work with their weather station, doing some counting outside with the play-based learning, creating, developing, looking at seasoned inventors, doing robotics, building things with Legos through an engineering lens. And so these are some of the things that they do on a daily basis here in the building. They are building, they're excited about their learning, and we're celebrating their learning. It's very important for us as leaders to pour into our scholars, to pour into them in a way that builds their confidence so they feel comfortable doing some of these very creative things and exploring some of these creative things and making sense of what we teach them every day through their lens, right? We have to use them as the textbooks, right? The curriculum is here and we love the curriculum and these are the standards that they need to learn, but we have to make sure we allow our scholars to be the true textbooks of how we execute our teaching and our learning. Another thing I wanted to highlight is our partnership with SCSU. Which is amazing, right? We're here on a campus, only school in New England here on a campus. We're learning, our scholars can walk right up the road and be able to kind of take part in some of the facilities. Here you'll see some pictures of our scholars at the library, walking through campus, engaging with the officers, learning. You can see them working with SCSU tutors. So they're able to gain some information. They see that more adults are invested in their learning and the things that they're doing on a daily basis. It's a mindset shift for them as well as their parents. They realize that college is something obtainable if they desire to go down that path for success. Something else that is, and we talk about looking at all scholars, no matter how they're performing or what sort of groupings that they're coming from, is our special education inclusion and flexibility model that we have here at Barack Obama, which I think is a great model to really consider. We have 65 scholars of our 329 who are enrolled in our special education programming. Of those scholars, we have 15, we have two, let me just go back and say that we have 2 self-contained classrooms. Right now, of those scholars who are in the self-contained classrooms, we have about 15 kids who are in the self-contained classrooms. Working with our team, working with our special education team, they have developed these success plans. They have looked at scholars, utilized the data to determine how can we shift their programming so that they still get what they need according to their IEP, but they're still in their least restrictive environment so that they're engrossed with their general education peers and they're learning in a space that they can be successful in. Of those 65 scholars, 7 of them are in our self-contained classroom as a home base, and they spend some time in the general education classroom with their peers. of those other 65, we have 3 who are actually in the general education classroom and part-time and self-contained. And we have 40 students, a whopping 40 students in the general education classroom staying near full-time who are actually receiving push in and pull out from the resource room. And I think this is amazing. Parents feel confident in our ability to develop plans for their kids outside of the box so that they can thrive in the spaces that they occupy. Today, we had a representative from iReady, which is a program that we use through our math department. And we had one of our scholars who was shining in that classroom, and she was asking about this scholar. And I just chuckled because it was one of our scholars who was actually enrolled in our SPED program, who was in that classroom, and he was answering those questions, thinking critically, and just being that role model student in that classroom. When you put scholars in a space where they can thrive, you will really see what they can do. And this again highlights our special education population and where they find themselves. And it kind of goes over the percentages of where I noted that they were at. Most of them are in the general education classrooms. If you look here, and this is our progress monitoring, this is something that the district really honed in on this year. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is that our progress monitoring here, although I know all the schools in New Haven is doing it, is such a driving force for us to determine exactly how we coach teachers, how we develop our tier 1 and tier 2 instruction, as well as our tier 3 instruction. We make sure that we're using research-based instruction for this, for our scholars to get the true learning experiences that they need. Each person that's executing some of this work under the progress monitoring for those small groups, that one-on-one, are for one certified, and they're certified. They're also trained in some of the things that they're doing. If they're doing reading recovery, if they're doing LLI, they are trained to execute that, and we are seeing lots of growth. It also is a driving factor for our professional development, right? Whatever our teachers need, whatever those that once a month that we get, it has to be driven by data. And so that's just something that we're engrossed in. That's a cycle that is a part of everything that we do here at Barack Obama. If you look here down at our iReady data, even with the disrupted instruction that all of our scholars have experienced, you'll see that if you look, it says the annual growth. So annual growth for iReady means that our scholars, where scholars need to be for the entire year. This is data from January. Thanks for the background noise, Dr. Gina, I appreciate it. Our scholars in kindergarten and 4th grade are really doing well. This is from January, so the numbers have, of course, continued to increase. So our scholars who are exiting out of our 4th grades are ready to go. So our middle school principals will be excited that scholars have that foundation that they need in mathematics in order to excel. Our kindergarten scholars are showing that same type of growth. So with that progress monitoring and us being able to determine exactly what scholars need by conducting those era analysis, we know what they need to be successful, and we put qualified people in front of them so that they can make that continued growth. As I mentioned with our kindergarten, our lower grade scholars, right? Our school we came across from the Hill. We're now in Westville, and we lost some of our families with the change of location, but we are building our program in a way and using that learning-based approach, the play-based and the project-based learning and our magnet theme and scholars, and everything's integrated together, and scholars are just thriving. If you look, you'll see our kindergarten scholars are just pushing through. 1st grade scholars are pushing through, and this is just January. Right now, many of them are already at the end of where they need to be, and we're looking at the program and speaking with representatives to determine exactly what we can do to continue to build on their skills. And this is year-to-year comparisons. So last winter, kindergartens were here, and this is where they are in first grade. So they're just growing. They're growing, and we don't allow for the disrupted instruction to be an excuse for us. We still have to push, we still have to determine and allow them to let us know what we need to do in order for that continued growth to proceed. Same thing here, you'll see that our scholars, this cohort data shows that the growth, they're continuing to grow at a higher pace with each year. Same thing here, and this is our ORF, so this is reading. So we went from mathematics to reading, and like I said, as our kids matriculate and to go to 4th grade, to then go to 5th grade, leave our building, I'm hoping that my colleagues will be very happy with the solidarity and the amount of information that those scholars will be coming with. And if I can, I know my 5 minutes are up. I just want to thank my team. My team is open to learn. They're committed. And I know we all say that, but they are probably, I would say, type A, a little like me, but they push, and they believe in our scholars, and they pour into our scholars, and they believe in them, and that builds their confidence. And with confidence, I believe our scholars can do anything. Thank you.
You're muted, Miss Red Hannons.
Sorry about that. So thank you, Principal Baker, for your presentation. Thank you for telling us all the great things that are happening at Barack Obama, but also thank you for uplifting our SPED students. As we always talk about our special populations, and understanding that they're scholars, and that if we put them in the best conditions, they can excel just like every other child. So thank you, and I think that gets at your core values and beliefs. Finally, we're going to high school, everyone. Mr. Greg Baldwin, the first and only principal of New Haven Academy. We'll turn it over to you at this time.
Thank you, Keisha. Thank you, members of the board and central office and colleagues. Thanks for having me. It's my 19th year running New Haven Academy, 20th year in the district, and still excited to get up every day and try to figure out how to do it better. So when I was asked to present, I thought I would just give you a snapshot of how we've approached the idea of coming back in person from the shutdown and from remote learning last year. So I'm just going to give you a quick snapshot of that as we go through here. You can go to the next slide, Keisha. Thanks. So first, our general approach. You see our motto there up on the right: think critically, be responsible, get involved. And our mission: preparing all students to succeed in college and be active citizens. So in general, our approach is this: we are a mission-driven school. 99% of all the things we do, we funnel through this question: is this supporting our mission? How does it support this journey that we're on? We're small on purpose. We take advantage of our size. I know every student in the building. That's on purpose and by design. Some adult knows every student well so that we can push them. We have really high expectations for them. And in order to do that, we need to know them well so we can push them in their individual directions to meet really rigorous standards. And another piece that we are fundamentally attached to is our job is to prepare kids to be successful after high school. So we build it into our schedule. It's a requirement that you prepare for life after high school in a really thoughtful and rigorous way. And we make sure that all students are making real thoughtful choices about what comes next and giving them access to lots of resources. So as we looked at coming back in person this year, the essential question is, how do we come back? What do we need to rebuild and how do we do it? And we focused on these 4 areas: connection, engagement, rigor, and support. So just one slide on each of those, just talk about how we've done that a little bit here. Yes, you can go on to the next one. So connection was key. One thing we learned during the closure and pandemic is we had a stronger advisory program than we thought. It became a real home base for kids and a way for them to feel connected, a way for our ninth graders who started remote to feel like they had somebody to connect to. So we've really enhanced that. All students are part of an advisory group. Advisory is both a homeroom and also a team that meets regularly at New Haven Academy. It's mixed age, so it's 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders together. Every advisory has an advisory leader, which is an older student who helps to kind of run the advisory with the teacher. Meets daily. 90% of our teachers are advisors of students. And we created a school-wide curriculum for the fall that focused on this idea of reconnection, coming back together with circles, academic advising, peer-to-peer mentoring, endeavors. A lot of these pictures are from these annual trips we do called endeavors, where advisories have to plan a trip that is either about team building, service, stretching yourself to do something out of your comfort zone, or learning something new. You can go to the next slide, please. So connection becomes the basis for making sure we're all back together. And then coming out of remote learning, we really wanted to focus on engagement. We know how hard it is to learn through Google Meets and screens like this and to really get kids engaged and involved. So we came up with this theory of action about developing really highly engaging, intellectually challenging, and authentic lessons, and really focused on a couple of themes. Finding student buy-in in our lesson planning, giving student choice in materials and ways to learn, and ways to show their learning in terms of assessment. Building an inquiry, especially in math. We redesigned a whole math program to focus on inquiry and project-based learning, and to assess student discussions. That's always been a part of what we do, to assess how kids discuss and how they interact, not just on paper, but when they're actually talking to each other. And really emphasizing different modes of presentation. So we rebuilt connection. We focus on engagement in all of our professional developments this year, so that we can head toward reestablishing rigor. If you want to go to the next screen, please. So we build from the end and come backwards. All of our students complete a social action project, which is a civics project focused on this theme of active citizenship and engagement, finding a problem in the world, researching it, and figuring out what you're going to do to solve it, and actually doing a year-long project. All of our students write a 10 to 15 page historical thesis and argumentative essay, not just a report. All of our students write a 6-page analytical essay in literature. We plan backwards from those to figure out how are we teaching them in 9th grade to get ready for this. We're also really excited, and we'll invite all of you to join us for our end of year exhibitions, which are back. Our 9th and 10th grade do portfolio exhibitions. Our 11th grade does a college and career portfolio, and you can come see some of these social action project presentations as well that our seniors do. And we have a course, a 2-year course called College Bound Seminar, which 11th and 12th graders take to plan for life after high school. Built into the program is a twice-a-week course focusing on college application, internship, getting ready for college, transitioning to that process. And that's a real fundamental piece of where our students are doing this, engaging in preparing for life after high school. Even amidst the pandemic, you can see they're really excited. Our class of 2022, we just had a decision day where kids announced where they were going. Really excited that among a number of schools, these notable schools that you see on the right there, were included in where our kids have gotten in, even in these pandemic years. So we're really proud of that. In order to be rigorous, we have to support students. So yes, thank you. So academic support is built into our schedule. We build in how and where we support kids. Every week, kids have opportunities to identify who they need support from and get it. Teachers have opportunities to, outside of the regular classes, pull kids together again for some reteaching or for some extra help. And that is a fundamental core. If we don't build it in every week, we're not able to provide it. So we're really focused on that. As many of you know, we also use a mastery grading system that supports growth. We separate academic and effort grades, which we call responsibility grades. All of our grades are rubric based, and we do not average grade. So when students demonstrate mastery, their grades get replaced based on what they're able to show us. So a real focus on and culture of support to support our rigorous expectations. And lastly, I'll just talk about some results. So again, even during the pandemic, our students identified feeling connected through our advisory program to at least one adult. 98 to 100% of every graduating class, we've had 15 has been accepted to college. That can now add 16 because the class of 22, I believe, right now is at 98 point something percent. Roughly half of our kids graduate with college credit as part of their experience here through our programs with Southern Connecticut State University and Quinnipiac University. And 90% of our kids were just we're restarting our internship program after the pandemic. We're really excited to get that back and going. So we think that focus of connection, engagement, rigor, and support has helped us to come back from remote learning and push us as we move forward. So really excited to invite you to exhibitions at the end of the year so you can see what our kids have been doing. And I really thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Let me thank my principals for spending the time to make this presentation for the board. There are great things happening in our schools. We need to continue to elevate excellence and share the things that our schools are doing. So I want to thank the three principals for their preparation and presentation. Board members, if you want to ask any questions, say anything, they're willing and ready with their ears open to hear what you have to say.
Okay, thank you all. Dr. Joyner and then Dr. Yarborough for questions or comments.
I think this is a concrete and powerful example of the talent that we have in our school system. I think the challenge that lies ahead is for us to help those kids at the bottom quartile to understand that if they work hard and if their parents work with us, that we can raise every single child in this district to higher levels of achievement. A lot of people think that Mr. Baldwin's school is a cupcake school. He has some of the same problems entering his school that we have in the larger high schools, some of the same difficulties and what have you. But because of the closeness of the staff and the students in the school, a lot of kids abandon some of the bad habits they had because they know there are people there rooting for them. And they know that there's always somebody that they could turn to, and that their principal is the ultimate father, uncle, big brother figure that they can turn to. And we had that at Hill House back in the day. I'm sure there's at least one person on this board that will say amen to that. Ms. Baker is certainly a great talent. Looks a little bit like Leela James with that hairdo. That's a good thing. And Kathy Russell Beck, both Kathy and Jared were lucky because you had the merging of two royal families, and you end up with excellence on both sides. It's for anybody that would, I guess, make negative comments about our school system. When you compare the evolution of public schools in this country and their ability to serve children of color and poor children, New Haven does a phenomenal job. And oftentimes we don't have the PR, and oftentimes our faults are magnified and our virtues are minimized. But I have family members in all of those schools, and I can say that they're getting a great education. I'm sure Kathy remembers my great niece, Courtney Merritt. And she's an honor student now in high school. And she's with you now. And as a person that knows education and knows what kids need to get when they get at school, and also knows what they need to leave home with, if we can straighten out the problem of student behavior and conduct, and I'm glad, Greg, that you have a responsibility grade, because being responsible is probably more important than anything. You can outwork people and achieve if you're responsible, but if you're brilliant and irresponsible, it's not going to last long. So I take my back. I pat you on the back, because I know everybody's going to have critics, And I wish we were wealthy enough to give you the reward that, at least the monetary reward that you deserve. But I also know that a dedicated educator, the greatest reward is in looking out at the students that you serve. And if you grow old in the community, you can see many of them doing great things. And I'm so proud of you guys. And I hope that you will continue to fight the good fight and to provide the kind of kids that we're going to need in this world if we're going to survive as a human species. So I thank you so much for what you've done and what you will continue to do.
Thank you, Dr. Dorner. Dr. Yarborough?
Yes, just want to express thanks for coming to present to us. As I read through the slides ahead of time, I just really appreciate the clarity with which you kind of described your school and what you do and how you do it. I thought as if I can envision what students experience when they're with you, and could walk into your school on any given day or see you working with your teachers and just pick up kind of right where you are and what you're working on. So thank you for that clarity of leadership and even how you described it today. And in the case of Ms. Kathy Russell-Beck, I experienced firsthand that experience in the school, and it's very much true. So thank you for that. Mr. Baldwin, I had a question, which is, I see value in the mastery grading system that you mentioned about separating the academic from the effort grades. And I see value in terms of how a student may decipher or discern how they're doing and why. And I'm curious if you have an example or a reflection on how you see students experience receiving feedback in terms of their academic kind of performance and then their effort, and how they may make any adjustment based on what teachers share with them.
Yeah, well, I'll just talk quickly, and I'm happy to share a lot more outside of this too, because we can go into great detail. But what I would say is, the disaggregation of all the skills that we assess is really important. And what we see over time is that older students are really learning how to look at, because you don't really get a general grade. You get graded on the skills. So if I have an essay and we're grading 4 skills, I get a grade on each of those skills. And then that becomes a basis of a conversation I can have with the teacher about how do I improve this one skill if it's lower than I want it to be. And so that becomes a real powerful tool, because again, it's rubric based and we've spelled out what does it mean. And so watching older kids have that conversation and really understand what does it take to revise this piece to improve the skill is really important. And separating the effort from the academic is really important. We incentivize the effort by, if your effort grade is good, you have many times to revise, retake, redo other assessments academically to bring your grade up. As long as you're meeting us halfway by trying, you get to do that. So kids understand that and start to internalize that in their choices.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussion? Okay. Dr. Tracy, does that conclude your?
That concludes the report this afternoon. And again, Principal, thank you so much. I forgot to mention and congratulate Matt and the mayor and Miss Yesidia, our president, for attending the opening of the opening of Obama School, the official opening of Obama School. That was well attended, well done. The students' performance was out of this world. The students' performance was out of this world. You should hear our students. I don't know if it was recorded. If it's recorded, I'll ask Ms. Jamie so we can share it with the board. We were awed by their performance. And that was one of the highlights of my Sunday morning. So again, thank you for coming out and for supporting the school in its opening. I'm sure Mr. Golson would like to hear the recording. And so we'll try to, I'll check to see if it was recorded, then we get it to the board.
OBAMA, OBAMA.
Yeah.
Kids were great. They had this great rap and everything. It was awesome.
They were.
I still got it in my head.
And the step performance too was really cool. I really enjoyed that a lot. That was nice.
Okay.
Okay. So you're all set, Dr. Tracy? Yes. Okay. For me, no report, just a reminder to please be thinking about the superintendent's evaluation and the form that we approved to complete the eval so that we can get going on that in the next few weeks. Dr. Tracy will be emailing all of us her documents on her end, and then we can take a look at those and we'll meet in executive session to discuss that further. Any questions on that, Mr. Bolton?
No, I'm going to say to Dr. Tracy, I really wanted to attend the opening, but on doctor's orders, I'm staying away from large crowds for a while. I still have a ways to go, but I'd love to see some sort of video or something of it when it does become available. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Head Start report, Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, this will be very brief. Our next meeting is next week on May 19th. And then just a reminder that the week after that is the focus area 2 review from the Head Start office. And so they'll be going over a lot of paperwork and things like that, but that just want everybody reminded that that's upcoming.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. And Citywide School Building Committee report?
No report because our next meeting is this coming Thursday at 4:30.
Okay, and Finance and Operations?
This will also be brief. Just wanted to say, in addition to covering all the action items that we previously voted on, the committee did start discussing the implications of the students' proposed climate resolution. And as reflected in the minutes, Dr. Tracy is going to meet with her district leadership team to review it, and we're going to identify the things that are underway and what we've been doing. Taking a look also, I'm taking a look also at the policy implications as to see what policies we have or model policies from CABE that regard climate or efficiency, like energy efficiency and fuel efficiency.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Wilcox on any of these reports? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to governance report. Dr. Benitez.
Yes, good evening, and thank you, principals, for a great presentation. Was very excited to see that some of these people were my principals when I worked in the district, and made me very proud to hear them talk about what they continue to do very well. In terms of the governance, one of the things that we want to do is to make the governance meetings a monthly meeting. We realize that meeting twice a month, it doesn't seem to be a requirement at the moment. We also were made aware by Dr. Michelle Kelly Baker that she's had to make some adjustments to the format of the documents that need to be used for reporting sexual harassment and bullying in the schools, which is as a result of new mandates, and what that has created is a need for us to work on the policies around these two very important concerns or situations that happen in schools. The district is addressing the new mandates, but we need to update the policies. So we will be working with her and the team, the committee, in order to support that very important change. We also met with Ms. Ibelis Velasquez to discuss the concerns students had around what the conversations that may arise as a result of literature or discussions that are that bring a lot of the historical context that we are living nowadays, especially around racial and ethnic issues, and how the department or the district has decided that what they want to do in order to support that concern is, and they have started doing this, they are providing the staff development that is necessary for teachers to address these concerns and to be able to contextualize some of the conversations, but also making sure that the discussions take place in a respectful manner and that students are given the opportunity to express themselves. The other thing that they want to do is to, in collaboration with Ms. Jackson and Dr. Kelly Baker, have some conversations about next steps in terms of when things don't work out well. And so those are the things that we have been working on. And as you already heard from Dr. Joyner, we thought that the philosophy on teaching and learning was ready to be sent to the board and for a first read. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. Any questions or comments for Dr. Benitez? Okay. Food Service Task Group, Dr. Yarborough.
Thank you. No report today. The task group will meet this Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next agenda item concerns discussion and possible action on memoranda of agreement with hotel and restaurant employees and bartenders union, local 217, regarding Janus versus AFSCME decision and COVID sick leave and quarantine time. The executive session is proposed for just those two items. We will not have the second proposed executive session item regarding the superintendent. And so with that, I'll make a motion to enter executive session for one, regarding strategy and negotiations with respect to pending litigation to which the Board of Education is a party, and two, would result in disclosure of strategy or negotiations with respect to collective bargaining. And the executive session is to include board members Dr. Tracy and Attorney Alexiadis.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Dr.
Second.
Joyner. Any discussion? Mr. Goldson?
Thank you. I'm just a little confused. Are we how many issues are we addressing in, are we addressing the memorandum of
Yes.
agreement with the hotel restaurant workers?
Mm-hmm. And the COVID sick
Apparently
leave.
I'm sorry, what's that?
And the COVID sick leave quarantine time.
So there's two issues that we're dealing with.
In that one, yep.
Okay, but they're both not listed here under the executive session. Well, Janice
They are.
and sick
Yep.
leave, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But then we're dealing with two other issues.
No, it's just the two, the memorandum of agreement with hotel and restaurant employees and the bartenders union. So it's the Janus versus AFSCME decision, and then the COVID sick leave and the quarantine time. So we're not going into executive
Roman numeral
session.
1 and 2 under that. I'm sorry, what's
So
that?
we're not going into executive session to discuss Dr. Tracy. It's just that number one.
So
on your
number two,
agenda.
so number 2 was Dr. Tracy. We're not discussing that.
We're not discussing that, just
Okay.
the one.
And number 1 is a separate issue from the memorandums of understanding with the
Number,
bartenders.
it includes, I guess it includes all of that, just the the two issues.
Okay,
The
got
action
it.
decision and focus group. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
any other discussion? Okay,
Just
so
one
we're,
other, you're saying Alexiadis and Dr. Tracy are the
Yes.
two that are coming in. So we're not
Mhm.
having our public relations guy come in, we're not having chief of staff, none of that stuff, just
no,
those
just
two
board
individuals.
members,
Okay.
Dr. Tracy and Attorney Alexiadis, unless we decided we
All right,
needed
thank
them
you.
to come in after. Thank you. Any further discussion? All right, so we'll go into executive session. Mr. Golton,
Yes,
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Ms. Hannon's emailed you all the link for executive session. Okay. All that. And so we are now out of the executive session and back in regular session. There were no votes in executive session. And with that, I'm going to propose two motions. The first being that we approve the memorandum of agreement regarding the Janus versus AFSCME decision. For a second.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Mr. Goldson?
I just want to make it, as I said in the executive session, I just want to put on the record my understanding of what we're approving. And that is an agreement, an amendment to the union agreement based on the Supreme Court decision that that employees will have an opportunity to join the union at the beginning of their or during their hire. Anytime during their hire, they'll have an opportunity to join the union and therefore have union dues taken out. If they don't join the union, union dues won't be taken out. Or if they do join the union, they can at any time during their employment opt out of being a part of the union by speaking with their union leadership or filling out whatever form they have to fill out as supplied by the city and or their union membership. Was that clear?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. All right, see, Mayor Elephant?
And just to clarify, so this memorandum basically updates the contract to bring us into and the unions into compliance with the Janus versus AFSCME decision.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, seeing no discussion, we'll vote on the memorandum of agreement regarding Janus versus AFSCME. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mr. Bolton?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so that motion passes. The second motion is that we approve the memorandum of agreement regarding the COVID sick leave and quarantine time.
Second. Second.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Any discussion? Mr. Goldson?
Thank you, Madam President. My understanding is that the administration will review the employee census and determine if there are some non-union members who are not covered by this agreement and report back to the board whether it's feasible for the public school system to cover, to also provide this benefit to non-union members.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton.
Thank you, Madam.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote on the memorandum of agreement regarding the COVID sick leave and quarantine time. Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Bolton,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so that motion passes. Dr. Joyner, did I call on you?
Yes, you did.
Okay, just making sure. And so that motion passes. Mr. Bolton?
Thank you, Madam President. Before we leave these issues, I just want to make it clear on the record that my vote for the first item, which was the AFSCME versus Janus Supreme Court decision, my vote in a positive for this change doesn't mean that I support this activity, this union breaking activity, which is essentially allows members to to not support the union while still getting union benefits, still getting raises that the union fights for all their members. I think it's unfair to the members that do pay dues to have other people benefit from that activity while not paying into the pot. I want to make it clear that that's my position, though I had to vote. To support this amendment to the contract. I don't necessarily support the actual premise behind it. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Goldson. Okay, and that concludes our discussion and action items. And so with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Dr. Joyner has a hand raised.
Dr. Joyner, your hand is blending in with your background.
It's because it's a
Where are
brown
you?
hand. It's a
You
brown
moved.
hand on a brown background.
There you are.
You guys should watch Kevin Hart. He has a skit called White Hand. But anyway, that's a brown hand. I agree wholeheartedly with what Mr. Golson said about that. I really believe that unions will prove to be the salvation of this country, particularly when I see the vast disparity between haves and have-nots. And I'm voting for this because it's really substantiation of the First Amendment. But I also think that if you're going to benefit from an organization, you ought to be able to contribute to that organization as well. And if my parents had had unions, we'd have been better off in the South where they work for sub-minimum wages. So I agree with Mr. Golson wholeheartedly on that one.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. Attorney Alexiadis, you were raising your hand. I'm wondering if you have a question or clarification. No.
Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox has his hand up.
Yeah.
Against my background, that's all.
Okay.
Which it does against my blue background.
Got it. Okay. Thank
Blue
you.
hand.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I just think it might, I mean, just to clarify some of the statements, which I am in agreement with, because I'm in disagreement with the union busting activity behind the Supreme Court decision, not in something that this board is doing or that the administration of New Haven Public Schools is doing. So just to clarify, not to put words in anybody else's mouth, but that's certainly why I was doing this, because it was clearly a decision with that in mind by the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, so a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Third.
Fourth.
Mr. Wilcox.
Attorney Alexiadis is
Attorney Alexiadis, what are
point of
you
order.
doing?
Did you vote on the second memorandum of agreement?
Yeah, we did. Where were you?
We did.
The discussion went a little far afield. I know I shouldn't interrupt the vote.
No. After the second vote, I then came back and made a comment about the first vote.
Right, and he had some disciples to support him.
All right, we're voting on adjourning the meeting. Mr. Wilcox was a yes. Dr.
Yes.
Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
See.
Gracias. Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
yes.
And I am a yes as well. Good night, everyone.